I'm going to tell you something that sounds arrogant, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to be a millionaire by 37. Not because I'm going to win the lottery, not because I have a trust fund, not because I stumbled onto some hot stock tip or got lucky with crypto. I'm going to be a millionaire by 37 because I have a plan. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that plan looks like. I am 32 years old. My net worth right now is essentially zero. I pay a mortgage on a modest house in a rural area, which keeps my cost of living low. I am not sitting on a pile of savings. I am starting from scratch in the middle of my 30s with 5 years on the clock. And I'm still telling you this is possible. Before I get into the framework, I want to hit you with a number that honestly reframed everything for me. According to data from Zippia in the UBS Global Wealth Report, the average millionaire in the United States is 57 years old. The typical path to millionaire status takes about 32 years. 2/3 of all millionaires are between 60 and 79. So when most people hear the word millionaire, they picture someone who worked steadily for 3 to 4 decades and got there at retirement. This is a real path. It works for millions of people. But it is not the only path. The world's 100 richest individuals earned their first million at an average age of 37. A study from Empower found that Americans in their 50s now have an average net worth of 1.3 million, meaning a meaningful number of those people got there well before 50. And research cited in Rich Habits by Tom Corley found that 75% of millionaires have multiple streams of income. Not one job they stayed loyal to, multiple deliberate streams they built over time. Let's get into the first principle. Most personal finance content talks about budgeting. Cut your expenses, stop buying coffee, track your spending. And look, the only number that truly matters when you're trying to build wealth is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap, that monthly surplus, is your wealth building engine. Everything else is just optimizing around it. Here's the thing about that gap that most people do not fully realize. There is a hard floor on how much you can cut. You cannot cut your rent below zero. You cannot eat less than nothing. At some point, you have squeezed the expense side as much as it will go. But there's no ceiling on what you can earn. Absolutely none. The income side of the gap is theoretically unlimited. So the priority is not just cutting expenses, it is widening the gap by growing income while keeping that lifestyle flat. Every time your income goes up, you do not upgrade your life. You upgrade your investment contributions. Your lifestyle stays where it is. Your net worth accelerates. That discipline, keeping the lifestyle flat as income grows, is what separates people who earn well and stay broke from people who earn moderately and build real wealth. The second principle is the one that changes the timeline the most dramatically. One study following over 6,000 wealthy individuals found that 65% of self-made millionaires had at least 3 income streams. 45% had 4, 30% had 5 or more. They did not start with all of those streams running. They built them one layer at a time. Here's how I think about this. Your primary job is the foundation. It is the income that funds everything else. You maximize it. You negotiate, you develop skills, you make yourself more valuable, and you use it as the base. But you do not stop there. In 2026, the tools available to build a second income stream have never been more accessible. Upwork's latest skills report shows that AI-related freelance gigs grew 109% year over year. Video editing alone grew 329%. The ability to monetize a specific skill, whether it's writing, design, data, marketing, coding, consulting, from your laptop on nights and weekends is real. My personal income stack right now has 3 layers. Layer 1 is my primary job. That is the foundation. Layer 2 is freelancing the skills I already use at work. That is easy. It requires no new learning on my part. It's just applying what I already know to jobs outside of my employer. Layer 3 is content and digital assets. This video, the research behind it, and the audience I'm building. That is the scalable piece that compounds over time as it grows. I'm not running all 3 at full capacity though. I nailed layer 1 down before I started building layer 2. I was consistently generating layer 2 income before I invested serious time into layer 3. Just think about it like this. You don't build a skyscraper by pouring multiple foundations at once. You stack floors, one solid layer at a time. Every new income stream I add does two things. It widens the gap and it reduces my dependence on any single source of income. If I lose my job tomorrow, the world does not end. That is what financial resilience actually looks like in 2026. Now let's explore principle 3. Every conversation about wealth building eventually gets to stocks, index funds, real estate, ETFs, and those are all great and important. I invest in them and you should too. But I want to make a case for an asset class that people in their 20s and early 30s massively underinvest in. And it's one of the ones with the highest potential return at this stage of life. And it's your skills. Think about it this way. If I put $500 into an S&P 500 index fund today, which typically returns about 10% annually, that $500 becomes $550 in a year. That's good and valuable. Do it. But if I put the same $500 into a course, a certification, or a mentor that helps me improve something that the market is paying for, and that skill increases my earnings power by $5,000 a year, the return on that investment is 1,000% in 1 year. This is the math that most wealth building content ignores because it is harder to quantify. But for someone in their mid-20s who is early in their career, the single most powerful investment you can make is in making yourself more valuable. Every year you spend compounding your skills is a year where your earning ceiling rises, your gap widens, and your investable surplus grows. In 2026, the skills with the highest return on investment are well documented. AI fluency, data literacy, the ability to sell or persuade, the ability to build and ship things digitally. These are the skills opening the most doors right now. And the most powerful thing about skill investment at my age is that I'm not starting from zero the way I am with my savings. A decade of real work experience means I already have a foundation. The return on investing in skills now is adding leverage to something that already exists. I'm not building from nothing. I treat my skill development budget the same way I treat my investment portfolio. It gets funded every month, non-negotiable. Because right now, at this stage of my life, a dollar invested in my own capabilities returns more than any ETF I buy. Now let's talk about the money that works while you sleep, principle 4. The S&P 500 has returned an average of approximately 10% annually since 1957, as I said before. That is not a projection, that is nearly 70 years of historical data, and the single most important variable in whether compound interest changes your life is not how much you invest, it is when you start. Here is the math that should rearrange your priorities. If you invest $1,000 per month in a basic S&P 500 index fund starting today at a 10% average annual return, you hit approximately $1.8 million in 30 years. If you wait 10 years to start that same $1,000 per month, same fund, same return, you end up with about $700,000 at that same endpoint. 10 years of waiting cost you over $1 million. Not because of the contributions you missed, because of the compounding that never started. The Motley Fool calculated that to become a millionaire in 30 years, you need to invest about $540 per month in an S&P 500 index fund. $540. That is achievable for a lot of people if the gap is wide enough and the income stack is growing. That is not a dream, that is math. But a 30-year runway is not the only version of this. If your timeline is shorter, the path shifts from pure index fund investment to building net worth across multiple asset types at the same time, an appreciating home, income generating assets, and a growing investment portfolio all working together. A freelance income stream generating $40,000 a year in profits is worth somewhere between $120,000 to $300,000 as a business asset. That is real net worth, not just a savings account balance. Count everything. The personal investment strategy on the liquid side is simple and boring on purpose. Every month, a fixed amount gets automatically invested into a low-cost index fund before you can touch it. No market timing, no panic selling, just consistent buying month after month, letting time do the heavy lifting. The index fund is the foundation. The income generating assets are the accelerant. Principle 5 is an important one to understand. There is a principle in physics called standing on the shoulders of giants. The idea is that you do not have to figure out everything from scratch because people before you already did the work. You start where they finished. In wealth building, this is one of the most underutilized advantages available to anyone willing to look for it. The knowledge required to build wealth is not hidden. It is not expensive. The people who have already done what you are trying to do have written books, they've recorded podcasts, and they've built YouTube channels. And they even published research about exactly how they did it. The same frameworks that took Ray Dalio decades to develop are available in a book that costs $15. The same principle Tony Robbins charges thousands per seminar for are on YouTube for free. The tax strategies that wealthy people use are public information. The IRS code is publicly accessible. One of the most important decisions I made was to audit whose knowledge I was consuming. I stopped spending time on content that entertained me and started spending it on content that taught me. The people I learn from in my field, the finance creators I follow, the books I read, they're all selected with one question. Is this person actually building the kind of life I want to build? And are they showing me how they did it? Beyond knowledge, there's also time. I cannot do everything myself. At some point, building wealth requires buying back your own time by paying other people to do the things that you shouldn't be doing. This is a mindset shift that people resist because it feels expensive in the short term. But every hour I spend doing something a professional can do better is an hour I'm not spending building my income stack. Your time is an asset. Invest in it accordingly. The fastest path between where you are and where you want to be almost always runs through someone who has already made the trip. Find those people, read their work, pay them if you have to. The leverage you get from other people's experience is the closest thing to a time machine that exists in personal finance. Let's get into the final one, Principle 6. I want to talk about something that does not get enough attention in wealth building content. And it is the reason most people who know exactly what to do still don't do it. The results of compounding, whether in money, skills, habits, or relationships, are almost completely invisible in the short term and almost completely inevitable in the long term. And that gap between invisible and inevitable is where most people quit. Jeff Olson wrote about this in a book called The Slight Edge, and the concept is one of the most honest things I have ever read about success. The actions that compound into extraordinary results are by themselves incredibly unremarkable. Investing $540 per month is not exciting. Reading 20 minutes a day about your field is not exciting. Freelancing for 3 hours on Saturday is not exciting. But compounded over 5, 10, 15 years, those boring actions become completely transformative outcomes. Here's what this means practically. The income stack is not fully built yet. The investment portfolio does not feel impressive at the start. There are days where the gap between right now and where you were trying to go feels enormous. That feeling is normal. It is also the exact moment where most people quit, and where people who stay consistent separate themselves from everyone else. The Millionaire by 37 story is not about one big break. It is about 1,000 tiny consistent actions that individually seem meaningless and collectively become everything. That is the hardest part of the plan to explain and the most important part to understand. Let me reiterate this quickly because I want you to actually do something after you watch this, not just feel inspired and close the tab. 6 principles. The wealth gap is the only number that matters. Grow income, keep lifestyle flat, widen the gap, build the income stack one layer at a time. Job funds layer 2. Layer 2 funds layer 3. Invest in your skills because at this stage of your career, they return more than any fund you can buy. Make compound interest your business partner and count every asset towards the net worth number, not just the brokerage balance. Borrow other people's time and knowledge aggressively, and stay in the game long enough for the 1% compounding to do what it does, which is completely change your life in ways that are invisible until suddenly they are undeniable. The framework is sound. The math is real. The only thing that separates the people who get there from the people who do not is whether they stay consistent long enough for it to work. I would rather shoot for this and land short than never try and stay exactly where I started. I will be checking back in on this channel with real updates, not just the wins, the whole picture. If you want to follow along, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.